How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Koda, and today I have 12 ground RP tips that I truly believe can enhance your performance and, in the grand scheme of things, increase your yield in XP and silver lands. So just to kind of establish some credibility, I'm level 100. I've been playing since friggin' 2013, even before tanks were a thing in this game. I got about 3,000 hours. And yeah, I hope that kind of establishes some credibility to my name. Without further ado, let's dive right into tip number 1, and that is don't hit objects. So what I mean by this is certain maps have, like natural objects like trees or bamboo, and then some maps have like artificial things like, some destructible buildings, fire hydrants, even some like gas pumps or gas containers that will actually explode if you hit them. So if you haven't connected the dots on why you shouldn't hit these objects, even if it's kind of fun to do so, is by hitting these objects, it gives your position away to your enemy. Especially, when it's late game and there's only a couple of you left. If you hit one of these objects, it could mean impending doom, because now the whole enemy team knows where you are and you are bamboozled. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is know when to smoke. Okay, if your tank has smoke, great, it's a really great thing to have. But oftentimes, I'm behind a guy that's charging a point or whatever, and they get hit, and sometimes they don't even take any damage, but they panic and they smoke, and now I can't shoot the guy that was shooting my teammate, and no one else can shoot because you got this big cloud of smoke. And in the grand scheme of things, there's a time and place when to smoke. Just know when to and when not to. Okay, tip number 3 is to change your reticle. On War Thunder's kind of website where you can download sound mods and reticle mods and things like that, there are hundreds of reticles you can choose from. I'm a minimalist, so I literally just have like a dot. Honestly, at top tier, when you get darts and you're trying to snipe people from long distances, I'm sure we've been in that situation where you're trying to shoot a very small weak spot, but the standard reticle is so clustered and you can't nail this guy in the tiny weak spot because the reticle is really clustered. So if you're a minimalist like me, or if you're playing War Thunder for the memes, there's some meme reticles you can choose from, and just choose a different reticle and it might increase your accuracy. So yeah, tip number 4 is to have the keybind set for the squad target. And if you've ever seen that yellow kind of ping on the map, or while you're driving around, that's the squad target. And there's 2 reasons why I think this can be especially important. Is 1, it can make your artillery a lot more accurate, because when you ping the squad target, you could see it on your artillery map, so they can give your artillery a lot more accuracy instead of having to guess whether the enemy's behind this hill or behind that building. Another thing is marking the map, right? You know where an enemy is, but you mark the map, and sometimes you're spot on, sometimes you're a house away or a hill off. But when you set that squad ping, initially only your squad mate and yourself can see it. But then when you go on your map and then you hit that ping, then your whole team can see where that enemy is. Now it can provide some great intel, and you don't have to be a scout tank or a light tank to have that scouting ability to provide useful intel for your team. So tip number 5 is to stick with your team. So I'm sure we've all been in a situation where it's a 1v1. You shoot your shot and it does maybe some damage or even no damage, and then they creep up on you and just one tap you, right? Well, those situations suck, but honestly, you got yourself in that situation because you weren't sticking with your team. By sticking with your team, you negate you know, situations like that happening, and it makes you a more formidable force to fight against. Sometimes, or oftentimes, this means that you win the game because, you know, you got this overwhelming force that can't be stopped. So just be a team player for tip number 5. And for tip number 6, don't be ashamed to buy and use bushes, okay? I'm a USA main, and my goodness, I really try my best to cover up this gaping weak spot right here that is a one tap. What I mean by that is this giant weak spot right here, or even lower glacis or lower plate. You know, try to cover up your weak spots. Don't be ashamed of it, especially in lower tiers when there's no thermal sights. Decals can be very, very useful. They're 500 GE each, so it's not too expensive. So buy yourself some bushes and make sure your bushes actually look natural to their environment. Okay, don't mix and match bushes to try to cover up your whole tank, because that looks unnatural and actually makes you stick out like a sore thumb. And just a tip, your bushes at certain distances will disappear to the enemy, so just keep that in mind. For tip number 7 is to check your corners, especially on you know, maps with lots of buildings. It really does not hurt to check your corners. Don't be going gung-ho, full sending it full speed through a city and then just get absolutely obliterated because you think you're invulnerable or invincible. So just every here and there, check your corners. It's a third-person game in at least in ground RB, so use that ability to swivel your camera and see if there's any enemies around the corner. Tip number 8 is to know your vehicle. I know you probably heard this 1,000 times, but you know, I see this so many times, especially with premium vehicles like the Vidar, for instance. People play like an MBT. They're up there in the front lines and they get one tapped, and you know, they're like, how the heck do you play the Vidar? And the Vidar is just one instance. Like, there's many planes, many tanks, many boats or ships that are premium and people buy them and they have no idea how to use them. Or even non-premium vehicles like tank tree vehicles or whatever. You know, just know how to play your vehicle, your respective vehicle, know its strengths and weaknesses, and that will enhance your performance in that particular vehicle. And by knowing your vehicle, you know, when you switch nations, you'll know exactly what its weak spots are. So there you go, it works hand in hand. And for tip number 9 is know your maps. Another cheesy one, but you know, you'd be surprised how effective you can be by knowing the flanks of every map and where people are most likely to camp. So by knowing this information, obviously, you know, you can prevent yourself from needlessly dying. Or you can go in those positions and get easy kills and boost your silver line and XP boost, you know. That's up to you. For tip number 10 is spot targets when you die. So a lot of people just give up when they die, go in another vehicle, and go on about their day. Well, you know, when you die, you know, that sucks. But, you know, especially when you're next to a teammate and they don't know where that shot came from, you should at least go on your map for that split second or two and drop a pin on where you think that enemy was. Or if you know exactly where that enemy was, then perfect. Drop a pin where they were and help your teammates, you know, kind of key on where that enemy was so they can return fire and not die as well. Tip number 11 is to check your kill feed. The kill feed can provide extremely useful information. Kind of two instances I can think of is, you know, let's just say there's like an enemy tank in the tree line that kills you and you try to get revenge on it. So you spawn in a tank and you go over there and you're like looking for it needlessly out of the battle, being useless. And, you know, it turns out that BMP died like a millennia ago and you're just over there looking for it needlessly and, you know, being a useless teammate. So check your kill feed. Another thing that's useful is when you're in CAS and you're wondering if the enemy has any anti-air capabilities, right? So check your kill feed for any Panzers or Flarakrads or ADATs or any of the low to middle tier AA vehicles. So that can help you out. And for my last and final tip is to conduct what in the army is known as SLLS, or stop, look, listen, smell. Obviously it's a video game, so you can't really smell, but you can certainly stop, look, and listen. So every here and there, especially on city maps, you know, just stop your vehicle for a second, look around, and listen. And sometimes, or even many times, you can key in on enemies that are around you that you would have never known were there because your tank is pretty loud or whatnot. So yeah, that's 12 tips that I believe are really useful and that I haven't really seen on other people's tip videos on ground RB. So I really hope this helps you out, and if it does, then leave a like and subscribe if you can. That'd be great. But yeah, have a great day.